Welcome to SolFul Connections, where we skip the small talk and head right into the soul talk. I'm Amanda Solar, and each week we share the kinds of stories that remind us we're not alone. It's about being human, raw and unfiltered, just real talk. Let's connect.
Connection.
Record. I am here with Barbara McClure, who produces B.R.A.V.E. Women's Self-Defense Program. And first of all, welcome, Barbara. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me. I've listened to some of your guests, and I'm super flattered that you invited me.
Well, it's such a pleasure and a privilege. And I have to start out by just saying, Barbara, I was like, what is Barbara's program called? Let me just look for her on social media. It was so hard to find. And then I think I found you on Facebook. And I was like, does Barbara have 12 friends on Facebook?
That's funny. Yeah, I don't have a big social media presence. There is a B.R.A.V.E. Women's Self-Defense Instagram page. And then I've created this program after training for 5 years at Combat Fitness Martial Arts. So Joe Cargato, he is the owner and instructor at Combat Fitness, does a great job of promoting everything there. And so that's where B.R.A.V.E. You can always find out about the seminars there. And then I post them on the Instagram page. But I had a bad experience with Facebook early on. So I'm not really on Facebook.
Can I just tell you, I say this with all respect, because I am telling you, it has like become an addiction for so many of us. We just can't get through the day without like, what's everybody doing? What's everybody saying? And so when I find somebody who doesn't have this like really heavy social media presence, I'm always filled with awe and respect. So my hat is off to you.
It's funny because when it first came out, social media first came out, I thought, I don't know, this doesn't look good for my self-esteem. That was number one. And the second one was like, or the first one, it was actually like, this seems like a tremendous amount of time like that you could spend on this. So those were my two first thoughts. And so I never really got into it. But now, many years later, this is how all kinds of communication is done. So the fact that I haven't done this is a little bit detrimental because when I talk to people and I tell them about like trying to they look at me like, where have you been for the last 10, 15 years, because I'm like, how do you make this work? So
I mean, some of the biggest,
I have to get better at it.
I guess, but I will say some of like the biggest celebrities don't have it. I mean, it's probably very healthy of you not to have it because it's not great for your self-esteem and it is a time suck. So you weren't wrong all those years ago. I guess it's just, finding that balance. But before we begin, can you just tell me a little bit about what is B.R.A.V.E. Women's Self-Defense Class and how did you come up with the name?
Okay. So like I said, I've been training at Combat Fitness Martial Arts for the past 5 years. Before that, I trained in Taekwondo and Judo and Aikido, a bunch of other things. And I just, Joe and I did a seminar together, a women's self-defense seminar. And I could see that there was definitely a need for it. And I enjoy doing it, and it's, you find those moments when you're just like in flow. And that's how I felt when I did it. And so right now it's a seminar series. So I do them quarterly. There's 3 seminars. This year there'll be a 4th. And the first one's going to come up in March. And I'll give you those dates for what we have for this year. And B.R.A.V.E. is an acronym for bold, resourceful, aware, victorious, and educated. And basically they're like the primary things you need for self-defense as far as the first thing is just awareness, situational awareness of yourself and others, and then having the warrior mindset. And so those words felt encompassed that.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the words fit and the overall word fits as well. Can you tell me about your journey, your professional journey, maybe even your personal journey toward this moment where you are now an entrepreneur and you are producing these important programs?
Thank you. So I'm actually a physical therapist. That's what I do full time. And
Okay.
the B.R.A.V.E seminars are just something I've started. Um, so I went to Lehigh University for finance, actually, and I completely hated it. It just wasn't in alignment with kind of who I am, and but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I just happened to date a guy who's a physical therapist, and that opened my eyes to the profession. And so I went back to grad school, became a physical therapist, and that's what I've been doing for the last 20 plus years.
So when you were little, was was finance like an interesting thing for you? Is that why you decided to, you know, start out pursuing finance? Where did that come in?
Yeah, I come from like a long line of CPAs. My dad's a CPA, my sister, my uncle, all these people. So it was kind of just like that's the family business, and oh, you have a business mind. And so I just went with it, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how
Yeah.
that
I mean,
happened.
really, when you think about how old we are when we're making those life decisions, it's amazing that anybody, anywhere, does whatever it was that they were like 17 or 18, making those decisions. I think it's kind of amazing even that you so young got into physical therapy. And what did you want to be when you grew up? Or did you just think, well, the family's finance, I'm finance. But when you were like a little girl, what was it that intrigued you or interested you?
It's funny because I think when people get stuck in their life, that's what people always say is go back and think about your childhood, think about those things that really captivated you. And so from the time I was little, I felt this pull to the martial arts, but I didn't really have the opportunity. I was the person that was always kind of looking in the karate school window, but it just didn't kind of work out with my family or whatever. And so when I went to Lehigh, there was a Taekwondo school a few blocks away from the school. And I said to myself, I'm going there. I'm definitely going to go there. So the first week of school, I went down there, and then that was it. I was hooked, and it
Wow.
was kind of like it wasn't like what they were teaching uh, was influencing me. It was almost like it was completely aligned with how I already felt. It was this like
Wow.
kind of this full feeling. So I knew I was at home, and then there are times in my life when I've had to step away from it, but it's kind of always in you. And I had a
Yeah.
moment, I kind of stepped away from the martial arts for a while. And I was in like a counseling session with my family. I just gone through a divorce, and I'm there with my kids, and we're all talking. And the therapist is telling us, okay, go back to that thing that completely filled you up, emotionally,
Yeah.
spiritually, physically. And I was like, that's a no brainer. That's easy. It's the martial arts for sure. And so kind of I left that session, and then that's how I ended up finding combat fitness. My son actually found it first, and then we went together to check it out.
I mean, that actually gave me chills because that's really I was curious about where that martial arts piece came in and what resonated. What point did you think that it could be more than a hobby for you? Because, entering into the space where you're creating these programs, that's big stuff.
Right now, it's a very small program, but I see the need, and I see how empowering it is. All the people who have come leave with just tremendous praise for the seminars, and it's growing each time. So
Yeah.
we'll see where it takes.
And what about physical therapy? Do you still, that's still like a passion? What is it about physical therapy that when your boyfriend was a physical therapist or was going into physical therapy, what was it that appealed to you about it?
I guess it's just, health and wellness. That's definitely always been kind of a theme in my life.
Yes.
So helping someone, through an injury, yeah, it just aligned with me. And I still enjoy it today as much as I want to kind of push my boundaries and do other
Yeah.
things. There's something that keeps me in it. Like I said, I still enjoy the connection with people. I used to work in a private practice for years. And then when my kids were little, I switched over and I started doing home health. Um, and that became just a wonderful thing, this one-on-one connection with people and helping people in a very kind of vulnerable time and in a very personal way. When you do physical therapy, I think it's very interesting because you break a boundary, a societal boundary, because you're touching people. like right away, you're breaking a boundary. And when you do that in someone's home, it's like exponentially closer because now you're there and you're seeing their family dynamics and the pictures on the wall. And so it's a very personal experience. And so, yeah, it's very fulfilling to help someone through a difficult time.
Were you, I think I also remember, I swear, I don't know what it is, but I can talk with you and I go, this is an athlete. I can just feel athlete vibes. Like, did you play a sport?
So yeah, I've always played sports. I was a soccer player, basketball player growing
Okay.
up.
Yeah.
I dabbled in everything. I've done a triathlon. My son and I did the 5 boroughs ride like 2 years ago, which is a 40-mile bike race in the 5 boroughs of New York. For anyone out there,
Wow.
if you've been thinking about it, absolutely do it. It's just fantastic. My dad's a New Yorker, so I grew up all my life, going over the Verrazano Bridge, and so to actually bicycle across it with my son was amazing. So
What is it about that appeals to you as somebody who likes to grab a book and sit on the couch regularly?
um, I don't know. I think just movement
Yeah.
feels good. You feel the energy moving through your body. Um, yeah. And that and doing it outside. So
Yeah.
moving outside in nature,
Yeah.
you have both of those things.
Yeah. What do you think people get wrong about you?
That's kind of funny because we're talking about health and wellness. And I
Yes.
do love health and wellness, but sometimes people think I'm just like this super healthy person and I never eat bad foods or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yes, I love my pizza and occasional ice cream and all those things. Yeah, but sometimes people think I'm just, so strict. No, I think there's balance in
Yeah.
everything.
I have a tendency to do that too. When anybody, whatever you're doing, like if I'm with like a mental health professional, I think, well, they never get angry
Right,
or,
right.
whatever it is, you just think, well, there's the perfect embodiment of whatever. Um, what would you say is the best advice you ever received?
Ooh,
I know. I used to ask people what's the worst advice that they ever received, but nobody would ever remember the worst advice that they ever received because I guess they never followed it. I don't know. But if you've got a worst piece, feel free to share.
no, I don't know. Something that just sticks out in my head was a mentor of mine in physical therapy said, think service, not sacrifice. And
Mm,
that always stuck with me. Because if you're always thinking about, oh, what I'm giving to a relationship or what I'm doing,
yes.
versus, how much you're getting from relationships. So
Yeah.
service, not sacrifice.
And what trait do you most admire or like in others?
Oh, admire or value,
Yeah.
like
Like it attracts you rather than repels you.
well, for sure, I guess open-mindedness.
Yeah.
Just, having an open mind, um, being someone who's willing to try new things, accept different opinions. Yeah.
Yeah. And what trait do you most love in yourself?
Oh,
That's always a harder one.
yeah. I thought you were going to say something about like superpower. Uh,
Well, you can share that too.
yeah, I was going to say they're kind of like related. I guess, the superpower one would be being able to find common ground with like
Mm,
anybody. Like, I
yeah.
can usually strike up a conversation with almost anyone and in a matter of minutes find something that we can talk about that creates common ground.
Yeah. And that is a superpower actually, because I wish everybody had it, honestly. I think the world would be a better place. What's a pet peeve?
A pet peeve, probably people not respecting the environment and just not picking up after themselves, whether
Yes.
it's leaving your grocery cart, you know, by your car, which if you
Yes.
can't bring it back, I totally understand that. But if you're able bodied,
I know.
and you just don't kind of pick up after yourself in a public place and are expecting someone else to kind of come along and clean up after you, that's probably a pet peeve.
Yeah. That just happened to me last night. I was in the snow and I was like, what is that noise? And my daughter said, you hit a cart. And I'm like, I didn't even see it. What was it doing there? And then I said, I can't believe somebody didn't put it away. And then my daughter said, well, you don't know what their situation was.
Right. You're always allowed for grace. You never know what the situation is.
It's like, all right. um, how would your friends describe you?
Yeah. How would my friends describe me? Active, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, like active, sporty. Maybe someone who's a thinker. Like I don't like to just like this is kind of hard for me. There's like this rapid fire questions. Like I
Yes.
like time to kind of like, oh, let me ponder a question and give
Yes.
a thoughtful answer. So yeah, I like to kind of think about things.
Yes. I don't have that trait, Barbara. I think I actually think verbally. So when I'm thinking, I have to kind of talk it out. So I just think out loud anyway, you know?
Good for you.
Well, I mean, it doesn't mean that it usually means that my first answer isn't like the ultimate answer, but it is an answer. Do you know what I mean? So
And
later
it's
on,
great, 'cause then you don't get stuck. You know what I mean? You're kind of just completely like working through your answer. Whereas sometimes like I could get in my head and maybe not get out of it. So
yeah,
yeah, I like that
yes,
idea that you're just going to keep moving through an idea.
just keep moving. You're right. That's a good way of saying it. Just moving through an idea, almost like it's a series of Polaroids. They're like just quick little snapshots of the thought until you get to the ultimate thought, maybe. But there is no ultimate thought anyway, because it's kind of like sometimes I ask people, like, what three people, if you could have any three people in the world over, for dinner, what three people would you have? And I think if you ask yourself that question once a week, you may
Mm.
get a different answer every
Yeah,
time, you
yeah, I
know?
can see.
And I think that's the same with podcasts. I think that the podcasts, they're just like a quick Polaroid because really we just hopefully are just changing and changing. And every minute you're somebody different than you were a minute ago. So saying that, Barbara, if you could have dinner with any three people, living, dead, maybe you know them, maybe you don't know them, who would they be?
Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna, like you just said, they'd probably be different weekly. So I'm just gonna
Exactly.
top of my head who I'm thinking of right now. I would say one is Billie Jean King, because I think she's a pioneer in women's sports and women's empowerment. So yeah, I would love to sit down and have a conversation with her. There's another lady I'm sad that I can't think of her name right now. I want to say her name is Edie, and she was a Holocaust survivor, and
Did she write the book, The Gift?
I'm not sure if that's the name of it, but yeah, she definitely wrote a book, and I listened to her on
Yes.
a podcast one time, and I took like all these
Yes.
notes. I called them Edieisms because she has all these little sayings that she would say that are
Yes.
just wonderful. I mean, they're so good. So, um, yeah, she would
Wait, it
be.
might not be The Gift, but yeah. Okay. Edith Eger. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
yeah.
So
Somebody
Billie G. King, Edith Eger.
And right now, I'll just say David Bradford. So he's an author. He wrote the book Connect, which I read. And it's one of those books that you read it and it changes you. And there's a piece in it that I'm like, why don't we all learn this? I think I told you about it. We were having a conversation about how he talks about when you're having a conversation with someone, you think of it like a tennis match, but not a match as much as a volley. So I want to hit the ball to you. I want you to hit it back to me. We're just having this friendly volley, right? And if we
Yeah.
think about it like that, it changes the way we say things versus if I spike it at you and you spike it back at me, like this volley is going to end quickly, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of the metaphor that he gives about how to give feedback. And so super interesting. So yeah, I'd like to sit
Yeah,
down with him.
that to my list because I mean, this is called SolFul Connections and the book is called Connect. So I think
Yeah,
I
right.
think once a year I need to read a book that has like connect or connection in the title. So
Yeah, he came up with the course. I think it's called Interpersonal Dynamics or Interpersonal Relationships. I wrote it down at Stanford Business School, and it's like the most requested course there. So
oh,
yeah,
I'm definitely going to do that. Last year, I read a book called Together by Vivek Murthy. Did you ever read that book?
No.
So good. And it really is about our connection. It's not called connection, but it really is a thread. Uh, as a Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy learned that one of our biggest pandemics is loneliness,
Yeah.
you know? And then I think prior to that, I read David Brooks' How to Get to Know a Person, which doesn't sound like it's about connection necessarily. But it was really, I'm so happy I read it. And when I first saw the title, I thought, I already know how to get to know people. But we still always need to really deepen our understanding about our connection with one another. I feel that so strongly.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in this book, one of my takeaways is like always speaking essentially in the first person. So, you know, if I talk about how I feel about something, then I'm staying on my side of the net. So that's the kind of what he talks about. Like when you play a
Mm,
game, you're playing this tennis match, you have to be on your side of the net. I can't jump over the net to the other person's side, right? Game over.
yeah.
So I can only say my perspective, my intent, and I can't ever speculate on your intention, right? So too is then how you need another person to learn more about yourself, right? Because I only know my intention and my behavior, but I don't know the impact of my behavior on someone else. So I need that interaction with someone else for them to say, hey, when you did such and such, it made me feel like this. And I'd be like, whoa, that's completely not what I was going for, you know, but, and without that feedback from someone else, you never really know how what you're saying or what you're doing is landing. So
I just need to stop and recognize what you just said because I think that is so powerful. First of all, it's like such a great promo for SolFul Connections because I think you really articulated how getting to know someone's story even helps you to know yourself better. You know, we need one another to get to know ourselves, to test ourselves, to grow. You know, I think that's so interesting. Okay, that's now on my list. What about any books or media that you've consumed that has made an impact? I did notice, by the way, that you called yourself a podcast nerd.
I am a podcast nerd. Yeah. My sons always laugh that many of my statements start with, I heard it on a podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I say that in my seminars too, because but yeah, so there's several podcasts that I listen to regularly. Um Lewis House, School of Greatness is one. Esther Perel, Where Should We Begin is another one. Um so yeah, I'm trying to work on my communication, you know, like especially after going through a divorce, you know, you want to think about like, you know, how could I have done things differently? Um how can I do things differently in the future? Like, and especially with my kids having difficulty, like how do you support your kids? Like, you know, if someone had asked me when my kids were younger, I would have been like, yeah, I'm a great mom. Like, you know, I
Yes.
coach my kids, I do all these things. Like you think I'd give myself an A, right? And then stuff happens. And it's like, darn, like this is the job that I want to do the best at.
I
And when you
know.
struggle, like, wait a minute. So it took some reflection and you know it is. Your kids, are your greatest teachers.
100%. And you know, it is such a true statement that it's the thing you want to be the best at. And there are days you go to sleep thinking, I'm the worst at this. And nothing can hurt as much as not being good in a moment or even perceiving that you're not good because we're just human. I remember telling one of my daughters, you know, the day before I gave birth, you know, I was um, we're all a little damaged. We're all a little traumatized. It just comes with being human. And I was still that person once I gave birth, but I had the desire to be perfect, you know? And I think when you first give birth, you think, I can do it. I can be the perfect human. I can discount all of my, you know, frailties and vulnerabilities, and I can do this perfectly. There really isn't a perfect person, which means you can't be the perfect person, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Sometimes I consider myself a recovering perfectionist, you know, because
Yeah.
perfectionism is definitely, like you said, a limiting belief because there's no such thing as being perfect.
No, and you
So
almost have to love those parts of yourself that I think we're taught to hide. I think that there are pieces of ourselves we're taught like this isn't a good one, hide this area, and I think you have to love those parts because some of the times you're slipping into survival mode or you're doing whatever this person you are needs to do.
yeah,
And
have you heard of the book No Bad Parts by Richard
no,
Spencer?
I'm writing this down.
That's exactly what he talks about, how there are all these different parts of us. And yeah, we essentially have to have love for all of them. And that we all have pieces of ourselves that, we don't actually, necessarily like or wish we didn't have.
It's so interesting that we go to movies to see people struggle with their humanity and maybe come out the other side. And we love the grandeur and the drama of it, whether it's their worst moment or, overcoming something. And then in our day to day life, we just kind of go, how are you? Fine. Everything is great. I'm doing great and I'm great. And we're just so conflicted, you know. I guess it's just society tells you this is how to be. So then there's that tribal instinct that says, well, this is what people like. I guess I'm going to go with that, you
And
know?
I think that's why people are reaching for more, because you have so many of those interactions that are just kind of superficial, which we need. Like we saw that in COVID, how like your interaction with the barista is meaningful. Like it brings
Yes.
something to your life, but it doesn't bring the same level that like an exceptional relationship or a deep relationship brings, right?
Even that moment with the barista, I notice sometimes that people can have their heads down and they can have a whole interaction where they never look at the person who is, making or providing their coffee and doing a money exchange. And even those moments are lost if you don't look up and connect on some level. Like that could be a moment for you or for them or for both of you. And we waste it, I think, when we just are in our head or not living in the moment or whatever it is that's taking us away from that fragile moment, you know?
Absolutely. I think like energy is transferable, so when you have super positive energy and you're, happy to see someone, as far as that quick interaction, it can lift someone up.
Yeah.
So it could be the brightest part of someone's day. Have you ever had someone ask you that, like, what was the best part of your day? And it was some kind of like random connection with someone, like maybe you've had a really bad day and that person that was just super bubbly and nice to you somewhere, what was the best part of your day? You know?
Yes. Speaking of bad days, what would you say gets you through a bad day?
Mm. Maybe music. I love music. So
Yeah.
that's definitely like uplifting.
Yeah.
Um, and then like, yeah, definitely moving. Like you can't stay in your head when you're moving.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Circling back to the women's program, can you share a little bit more about what happens? And I'll tell you why. I remember years and years ago, I took a self-defense course and I always felt under attack. Like we kind of had to run through this gauntlet of men. And Barbara, I swear I would go like I would leave going, well, you know what? I think my secret to self-defense is going to be crossing the street because it was so unenjoyable. So can you tell me a little bit more about what does that look like and what happens as part of the program?
And actually, the whole idea of crossing the street is an excellent strategy. That would be one of the first things. If you can avoid a bad situation, avoid it. So I would say that's one of the things about women teaching women that's wonderful. Like when you have a guy teaching a women's self-defense class, it can be kind of intimidating
Yeah.
for some women and maybe feel not as inviting. So that's the first thing, is it's very disarming. Like it's
Yes.
we get to take a few minutes and kind of all talk about kind of what brought us here.
Mm,
And then we get into it and I talk about the acronym and about the two biggest things have nothing to do with your physical ability. So your awareness, your situational awareness and your awareness of yourself, that's something that everyone can apply regardless of, your physical state, so it's huge. And I think of kind of the awareness on a continuum. And so we can all probably improve where we are on that continuum of kind of paying attention, you know. And then the second part is the mindfulness, or the warrior mindset, which is just basically the survivor's mindset that I'm going to get through this, whatever it is. I can get through this, you know. And so I talk to people about having a mantra, and I give the example of I was watching this video my son showed me of this probably 20-year-old woman, and she's about to do like base jumping, and so it's kind of like bungee jumping, whatever. She's got her feet restrained, and so she's shuffling to the edge of this cliff, right? And she's about to jump off, and she's got her eyes closed, and she's like, I can do hard things. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. So she's, you know, talking herself into it. That is so important. And so that's one of the things we talk about initially too, to have your mantra. What are you going to say when stuff goes wrong, right? Because you don't want to have that moment where you're like, oh crap, I'm going to die. Like that's not what you want saying in your head. So there's got to be your go-to statement that you're going to say, whether it's, I can get through this, I'm strong, you know, whatever it is. So I, you know, as we go along, at some point I'll ask people, okay, what's your mantra? What's your mantra? So everyone's got to come up with a mantra that they say in the moment when things don't go right.
Yeah, I love that. Is the course for a specific fitness level? Can anyone do it?
Yeah, anyone can do it. And that's the part that talk about self-awareness. So you need to know what your body can do. So say the first course is called Don't Be a Victim. And it's about situational awareness, and then identifying a situation, and then acting before something actually happens. So that's course one. Course two, you're kind of a little bit what we call behind time. And now someone's actually grabbed you. They grabbed you by the wrist, they having a bear hug. So now you're getting out of a situation where someone already is touching you. That's course two. Wow. Course three is from the ground. One, how to fall to the ground without getting hurt, and then how to defend yourself on the ground, including being kind of pinned to the ground. So those are the different courses right now. And then this year we're going to add a fourth course, which is going to be like a weapons-based course, which will be fun.
I do love the falling to the ground without getting hurt.
I mean, if you get hurt, you know, from the fall, that's it, right? You're going to have limited strategy from there. So yeah, it all starts with that.
Yeah. And also I love what you're saying about situational awareness, because I have shared with my daughters, people have died because they're too embarrassed to follow their instinct. They think, well, what if I'm wrong? And I don't want to be rude. And it's about like, get out of the car if you feel like some kind of way, and you might be wrong. And that's actually okay.
And that's what the B in B.R.A.V.E is for bold. And that's what we talk about. Be bold enough to do something, say something, right? Like when you take a CPR course, they tell you, you know, as you're doing CPR and you want someone to call 911, you don't say someone call 911. You point someone out and say, Emily, call 911, you know, because otherwise if you throw it out there, no one may act, right? So bold is being bold enough to do something, say something, go with your gut. A woman the other day came, she was 68. She and her friend, who's also 68, they came and took private lessons with me. And one of the reasons why they came was because she had this scenario at like an ATM. So it's one of these banks where you have to swipe your card to get in, like it's after hours.
Yeah.
So she goes and she can't, it's not working for her. So this guy comes up and he says, I'll swipe you in if you don't mind if I go first. And she said, okay, sure. So he swipes in and he goes in, and they're both in the little booth together. And then he finishes, but he doesn't leave. He just stays there. So now she's action, and he's kind of behind her to the left, and she's like terrified, but was more afraid to say, hey, do you mind? Are you done? Do you mind leaving?
Yes.
So, you know, and how is it that sometimes as women we'll accept that it's okay for me to stand here terrified rather than to be perceived as rude? Right?
Yes.
So I was like, you know, you need to speak up and say, there's nothing wrong with you saying, are you finished? Do you mind leaving if you're done? You know, but we're just too afraid to say that. So being bold incorporates a lot of things. And that's, being not afraid to speak up. You know, if there's no reason why you should be standing there in fear and not say something because you're afraid to make the other person uncomfortable. Like you're already uncomfortable. So.
This is the story of my life, Barbara. You hear so many people judge women for these decisions that they sometimes make, and we don't fully understand the, I almost want to call it indoctrination about politeness and being
Yes,
polite and being pleasant and not making anybody around you feel bad. And that's so ingrained that it can take a front seat even to your safety.
absolutely. I don't think there would be a man out there who would deny that he feels pressured to be strong, right?
Yeah.
To have a strong presence and that influences
Yes.
decisions that he makes. And just what you said about women is so true. We're indoctrinated to be nice, to, go along. And then someone looks at you and said, well, why were you so dumb that you did that? Well, you can't have it both ways.
Right. That's 100%. Well, I love it. I really love that you're doing this. I think I love it for two reasons. I love it because I think it's so empowering for for all of us, for women to learn to feel at home in our bodies and strong and aware, mind and body. And I also love it for you because for you to have that connection to the martial arts where it feels like something that is part of you and that you're following that dream, that also is empowering. Anytime somebody follows like some sort of calling, I think it invites all of us to do the same.
It's been really fun to see when people leave the seminars, how empowered they feel. And for some of the young people, I've had some young girls who've taken private lessons with me, and to see, yeah, their confidence just soar when the same 100-pound girl learns to use her body in a certain way. Just the confidence is amazing. So, yeah.
Because I would have to believe that it would transcend that experience and go into school and go into work and go into family dynamics. You take your strength wherever you take yourself.
Absolutely. And when we talk about don't be a victim, part of that is how you carry yourself. The people who act with a certain level of confidence and awareness, they're not the ones who end up being a target. And we call it being a target versus a victim. Like anyone can be the target of someone's attack, but you don't have to be a
Yes.
victim of someone's attack. And so you're less likely to become the target if you carry yourself in a certain way and you're aware.
I just want to close out, Barbara, by asking, because the overarching entity for SolFul Connections, the podcast, is soulful living. When you hear that phrase, soulful living, what does that mean to you?
I think what stands out to me is kind of living in alignment, like living in alignment with who you feel, like who your authentic self is. Am I connecting with my values, and what I believe is my purpose? Am I connecting with people? Am I making an impact? Yeah, and just putting it all out there, being my authentic self and not being afraid of that.
Well, I'm so thankful for the work that you're doing in the world. I think it really is important and I value it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just want to acknowledge you for what you're doing. It's so important for people to feel a sense of connection and to have an avenue where they can go and hear these wonderful stories that you put on. So, yeah, thank you for sharing your story and all the stories of the people who come on your podcast.
Thank you. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Thank you for being a valued part of the Soulful community. Thank you to William Aronson for writing, recording, and producing the Soulful Connections theme song. And finally, always know you're not alone. We are connected. We're all in this thing together, and you and your story are important. Let's just keep on connecting.